Hello, hello, hello. Greetings. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever we are reaching you. Today, we are about to do Tai Chi and Qigong. So, if this is your first time, you can go back through the live streams here on the channel um, and access some of the old classes to see some of what you missed. Um, but follow along today and enjoy the confusion if it happens. But we try to keep everything very simple. People can just jump in um, here pretty easy. Okay. Today we are going to talk about the fourth of our core movements. We call flying diagonally or parting horse's name, depending on what you do. We've got two ways of doing it depending on each of those names, um, but those names get switched a whole bunch of times. So anyway, we will run through the Taoist longevity warm-up and take it from there. Okay, I'm going to do this with less verbal cues here. We'll try to keep the count a little more accurate. So, just for that. Okay, so starting here, Buji, get nice and tall, like you're measuring yourself against the door. Okay. Breathe from the lower abdomen. So you put your thumb in your navel, let your hand drop. Try to push your hand out toward the floor. When you inhale, and then when you exhale, pushes the air back up through the air. Okay? But we can have our hands down here. In through the nose, out through either the mouth or the nose, never in through the mouth. Okay. While you're doing the exercise, of course, you take in, you breathe through the mouth when you talk all the time. We mean during the exercise. Okay, so here we're going to release the knees, sit back just a little bit, come back up in that range, relax, and bounce. This is just a slight little bounce there. One thing this can do is reduce viscosity in your spinal discs, which can prevent it from receiving herniation. That's just by slowly compressing them or lightly compressing them over and over and over again. Okay, and come to a stop. All right, forward arm circles. We're going to take our hands up to the hips. Our right hand is coming out in front of us. We're going to bring it into the shoulder. Bring it down to the hip. At the same time, left hand comes up to the shoulder, comes into the hip. Make two concentric circles on either side of the body, or circles. And we reverse out from the shoulder into the hip. And come to a stop. Sink all the weight onto the left leg. Take a small step out to the right, or just to the right. And right hand comes up to the face. Sit back, turn as if you're throwing something away. Hand comes down. Left hand comes up. turn, and make it one smooth motion. Very good. A little more square to the camera for you. And come to a step over the left leg. And your right leg over the right. Feet together. Sit back, bring the hands in front of the chest, come down, come up onto the toes, hips forward. Good. And reverse. I'll go to the side here now. So, here. And up. Or, yeah. Good. Okay. All right. So now, feet together, take a small step out to the left diagonal. Hands come to chest level. Reach out, pull forward, counterclockwise circles. Good. Yeah. Step in, back out, and yeah. Step in, back out. Continue. Yeah. In, and now back to counter. And step up, back up to the beginning position. Hands together, fingertips touching, thumbs overlapped at the first joint. Leading with the fingertips. Up. Shoulder. Waist. Hip. Knee. Knee. Hip. Waist. Shoulder. Center. And up. Side. Up. Shoulder. Waist. Hip. Knee. Knee. Hip. Waist. Shoulder. Center. And up. Again. Up. Shoulder. Waist. Hip. Knee. Knee. Hip. Waist. Shoulder. Center. And up. Up. Shoulder. Waist. Hip. Knee. Knee. Hip. Waist. Shoulder. Center. And up. One more time each side. Up. Shoulder. Waist. Hip. Knee. Knee. Hip. Waist. Shoulder. Center. Up. And last time. Up. Shoulder. Waist. Hip. Knee. Knee. Hip. Waist. Shoulder. Center. All right, so there's that. Remember, ask any questions you have in the live chat here, or on any of our outlets that we have going out there. Okay, good so far. Don't have anything. Okay, couple of words about Qigong before we move on. Qigong, the way that we utilize it in our system, internal training as it were, deals with, first of all, breath control, matching your breath to your movement, and in that way, what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically balance inner processes. Okay, you're trying to balance your breath, you're trying to balance your movement. Right? If you can keep a good balance between breath and movement, you will not run out of breath, you will not tire, right? Because you have a very good respiration to metabolization of oxygen. When you have those two things, kind of when you're taking in just enough to keep everything going, right? You don't have a surplus, you don't have a deficit. Now you can't maintain that state forever, but the ability to maintain that state in a particular type of exercise is a pretty good benchmark of athleticism and fitness. So keep that in mind. Now, I don't mention where you inhale and exhale in this set because I don't want people to be thinking too much about it. Really, what this set's going to be really good for is your movement. Right? You're moving through each of your planes of motion. You're moving your waist, your shoulders, your hips. Right? You're doing a forward bend. All kinds of things that you do to warm up. And these are very good warm-ups. And they don't take a long time, and they don't tire you out excessively afterward. Now, just doing these is not necessarily going to give you a whole lot of improvement. However, if you are recovering from something, or if you are a person who has been sedentary a lot of time during their life, and they're trying to build up a more functional body for activity, then you may see benefits just by doing this. But don't expect to see huge benefits just from doing this. This is kind of, like I said, this is our warm-up. This moves our body through different, through our different ranges of motion. Gets us set for what we're about to do. Okay, so that being said, here we go. Now the principles of Qigong that are taken over and used in martial arts. It's a chicken and the egg kind of thing. Depending on what you consider martial art and what you consider Qigong, this practice comes from one of them. But Qigong itself is a fairly new term. It's a 20th century term. Wasn't used, I think, um, well, early 1900s at least. Um, and then it was kind of injected more into the gestalt of everything, I think, in the late 40s, early 50s, and through the 60s. So, if you go far enough back, which isn't very far, you're not going to see the term qigong, so it's going to be hard to to pinpoint. But the idea of breath and movement together um, is key in martial arts, and especially in a martial art like Tai Chi, which is a wrestling art. Breath regulation is different in with different strategies. If you're doing lots of hitting, there's going to be a different type of strategy that you're going to incorporate there. Now, if you're just doing this for health, you're not doing this necessarily for martial arts. Connecting your body to your movement is going to make everything more efficient. It's going to make everything in your body work more efficiently and move more efficiently. It will keep you safer from injury. There's a litany of things that will happen if you can match your breath to your movement. And it doesn't necessarily matter in what method. We have lots of arcane methods in martial arts because these are for specific purposes, but they generally give you more than you need. So people who are just average everyday citizens going through life, the matching of the breath is really the only thing that I really accentuate right at the beginning. You want to get into the where do you inhale, where do you exhale? There's that too. Now, when we get into the Taiji, the one thing to think about is this, and this is one thing I will say about the inhale exhale. When we do in Qigong, when we expand, we're inhaling, like we're filling everything up. Now we're going to do this in reverse with a martial arts kind of thing, where when we're pushing, we're going to exhale because we're going to be trying to increase our intra-abdominal pressure while we are doing a movement which is intended to meet resistance. Okay, so that's one thing we have to keep in mind. These are meant to be done against resistance. We do not have resistance, so we have to alter them to give ourselves the same physiological benefit. Okay. So let us begin with our basic circles here. So we're going to get out into our mabu, horse stance. I'll stay at a nice, comfortable level for everybody. Right? Like I said, you find your good level. This is pretty good for most people. It's challenging for some. If you want to get a little bit more out of your practice, just lower your horse stance a little bit. Right? Okay, so that will work there. Okay, it works still here. See, we're going to be moving back and forth. Okay, so now hands here. We're going to go one at a time. First one. And yes, it is okay to rearrange your feet. You see mine tend to slip a little bit on the surface. It's in a dusty basement. We're going to reverse it. Okay? And other hand. Now we reverse this one. Now, both hands together. This is a brush knee. And now our cloud hands. Good. Okay. Now, so there's our basic arm motions here. Okay. Now, there are certain alterations you can do to these, which will give you all of your postures and movements that you find in the forms and stuff like that. We will start, we'll just run through our first three, which are burst the bird's tail, burst knee, step, and monkey stepping back. And then we will move on to flying diagonals / party punches. Okay? So we're just going to do a couple repetitions of each of these just to kind of refresh our memory, and then we'll move on. Okay. So starting here. Come up. Go ahead. Release. Bring your foot back. Good. Back. Now, brush knee. Straight up version. Surface. Monkey stepping back. All right, so there's the first three of our core movements that we're using. Each one of these represents a movement pattern or a direction or a gait, a step, whatever you call it. That is forward, backward, left to right, and diagonals. So today we'll talk about the corners. Now, we talk a lot about keeping our lines. If you're into weapon work or you're into the lightsaber, you know all about your lines of attack and keeping the line, as it were, that plumb. So now, what we're talking about here is we're talking about glancing off. Now, this is something that's also common, right? We never, generally speaking, we never step directly straight forward in most of our sets, right? We're always coming in, we're always kind of stepping off a little bit to the side. Now, that is partly because of our anatomy, because our hips are separated. So if we're taking a step forward, we kind of go back and forth as it was already, unless we cross our feet. However, there are many instances where, especially with barehand and especially with wrestling, where we're trying to get not necessarily totally around them, but we're trying to get at an oblique angle to them. Right? There's a saying that I know is popular in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu circles: angles mean strangles. Most of your locks, most of your holds, and most of your throws are going to be done from some oblique angle to your opponent. Whether that means entering from that angle and then attacking directly, or attacking at that angle, right? And then, of course, there's always defending. Now, for non-martial artists, those angles are important because we deal with these angles mostly in the transverse plane, this plane of motion here. Okay? This just happens to be the plane of motion that we get injured in the most, just across the board. So it's something that we want to pretty much keep nice and healthy there. So this movement, which has two names, we're going to do it two ways, is really about that. Now, if we talk about the 8 ways, which we haven't really talked about yet much, we have these techniques that are corresponding to things. Bong Lu Ji An. Bong is this kind of buoyancy feeling, a kind of bounce. Right? A lot of people think it's like an energy rising, but it's more like an energy expand. Boom. Okay? And that has to do with, it's not necessarily movement, but it's a quality, right? So that we're not collapsed, we're not like this, right? If you've seen some Taiji done like that, right? We're out like this, right? There's an energy, there's boom, as it travels through the whole body. And then that powers everything. Coming from the hips, moved through the waist, out through the arms. Lu is to lead, right? So that's our technique of taking force in and leading where we want to. Some people call it roll back. It doesn't really have anything to do with rolling or going backwards. It just means to lead. Ji is to squeeze, right? And to squeeze meaning like to jam in, like to wedge yourself in, like you're getting into a crowded elevator or something like that. And that's something that you do there to get people to crowd in and to, make themselves tighter. And then on, which means to press down, right? Pushing something into the ground. Now we get to the diagonals, which are, if you have Bong Lu Ji An, you have Tai, or you have Tai, which is this here, which we did in monkey stepping back, Zai Lei. Lei is what we're going to do today, which means to rend, tear something in half. Right? Zhou, which means elbow, and then Kao, which means to lean on. We're going to talk about Lei. Lei is basically, like I said, it's to rend, to tear into half. Okay? But in a powerful way. This movement is going to go this way. We're going to step out diagonal here. The first thing we do, though, is we're going to circle our hands and bring them here, kind of to our center. Okay? Now, you want to be very kind of abstract about it and get nice, good bone energy. Your palms facing each other like this. Right? If you are into more of the application and the fighting aspect of it, you can change it to be more like this. Okay? See? Not much difference. All right. So we cross up here. We step out. Now we're going to shift forward. Now this is also part of our what we were saying here. Kao, to lean on. You see, it's like I'm leaning on a door. Right? I'm leaning on something there. Then I'm going to separate this one. This is the one most people know about. This is the one we're going to call part the horse's mane. Okay? As if you're holding a horse's mane in your hands and you're brushing it. Okay? Now, when you get to this position and you stop, turn towards this leg, cross your palms again, and then we step out again. See? So now this hand doesn't really move much. And this hand, while it is moving relative to our body, in space, it's not moving much at all. Okay? Another one of those yin-yang reversals that we get in Taiji a lot. Okay? So, cross there, parting horse's leg. You can do it backwards there. A very common one, everybody sees it. Now let's do the flying diagonal version. Okay? This one is from a long style, and instead of going like this and throwing this out here like a frisbee, we're going to bring this up to our temple, like this. Okay? You can have the hand open, you can close it if you want to. Okay? So everything else is the same. Okay? This hand is the same. This hand is the same. Right? What's going to happen though is this is going to be down here by the hip, and this is going to be up here, and we're going to be a little bit more oblique. So here, out, like that. In. See? In. Okay, but notice this is what's happening all down here, exactly the same. Okay, relative position of this arm and all of that is kind of arbitrary. Okay, when you apply this in a situation, whether it be in a person-to-person situation, if you're a martial artist, or whether you're doing it in some sort of athletic endeavor when you're not a martial artist, you're just doing this for health, right? What's going to be important in this, and what's going to be the make or break factor in this is not going to be where your hands are. It's going to be what your body does. What your body does in relation to your hips. Okay? And it's this. Okay? Right? If we, you see, put some, as you say, Fa Jing into it, that's coming from here. right there. Right? And notice the power is relaxed. It's not not a pushing through. Right? I just did a conversation with Dr. Mark Chung, which we will post this week here, and we talk about that. When you're performing at very high levels, what you're doing is actually probably expending a lot less energy than you normally would. So, there's that. Okay. Anyway, so flying diagonal slash parting horse's mane. Let's try that again. We'll do parting or flying diagonal first, parting horse's mane second, and then we'll see if we got any questions out there. I can demonstrate anything you like, or whatever. If not, we'll finish up with some final thoughts. Go on with our days. Okay, so here. Okay. So that's that is that. Okay. We don't have much happening right now. Check the Facebook. Don't see anything new there, so we will just kind of finish up. So this movement here, let's talk about it in relation to the rest of Taiji, right? And then we'll go through a little section of the form, and then end for the day. Okay. So now this right here. Okay. We have chops coming from our cloud hands. We haven't gone over cloud hands yet. We'll do that next week. But see here. We've also got them coming from fresh knees. Right? Okay. Now, if you look at a position like, let's say, Donkin, single whip, right? Where we stand up. There. You see we've got this movement here like that. And we're going here like this. There's our cloud hands. Right? Now, there's also this. You see, as I turn, opening up. And if you see it done long, out like that, really open. Okay. So, you got this way, you got that way. Alrighty. Oh, for so the don't worry too much about the words, the Chinese words that I used. That might take a little bit of time. But we have 8 terms that we use in Taiji. Feng, Lu, Ji, An. I can put those in the description here in a minute. But these correspond to our four directions, that, as they say. They're kind of done square on. They're talking about more kind of directing things that way. And then we have Cai, Lei, Zhou, Kao. We did Lei today. Lei means to tear, to rend. Right? And what it really, see, that's what's happening here with the body, right? We're rending here. And that's what's going to happen to your opponent. You're going to take the top half of their body and push it one way, either pin their body to the ground so that it gets pushed the other way, or actively push it. Okay. And then that will cause them to fall. Hence the term, and hence the term of Taiji, because we're dealing with that yin and yang that's constantly rolling around, right? And that dynamic, when you're wrestling, you feel pressure here. You have to choose whether or not to try to overcome it, yield to it, or hold it, right? And it's all going to depend on what you can do, what your levels are, all that kind of thing. These motions are very useful in those states, right? Because if I push my arm up against my body, there, and that's the thing. If I here, you see something's in front of my arm like this. It's effectively blocking me. But if I turn this way, right, relative to that, okay, yes, if I push against it, there, but I can also turn, now I can move away from it, okay? It doesn't work exactly around because it's my own body and I'm going to turn. But if you have somebody pushing up against you, when you turn, they will tend to stay where they are, and you will turn underneath them. Or if here, you can turn here. This is what we do with our press all the time, is that we change the angle, so now we can slip out here, yet they don't feel anything different. So some little tips on applying the mysteries of Taiji there. Yes. As far as breath and all of that stuff goes, because I know people will probably ask. Again, like I said, we tend to exhale as we extend in the form of Taiji and martial art. But at the very beginning, just continue to breathe. Don't hold your breath, and try to get it nice and deep down. Just think about breathing deep. Your movement will sort of naturally coordinate to it, because it depends on its on the abdominal pressure that it creates. So you're going to find that your body will adapt to the different breaths and where you're taking them. That's another reason, or I shouldn't say it's another reason. We mistake this a lot, because if I say reason, it means it somehow was intended by people who created Taiji. And I don't think it was necessarily intended, but I do think that it is a benefit of moving slowly and breathing, that you can match your movement to your breath, and then when you start to move quickly, your brain and your motor cortex and everything like that have a blueprint to go on as far as that coordination goes. I'm not a doctor. It's just my supposition. Okay. So, let's see if we have anything else. think that might be it. Okay. Well, wrapping up, this is the fourth of our 5. Remember, we have 5 movements that consist of our base. Now, if you learn these 5 movements and you practice these 5 movements, it is my opinion that you have learned all of the necessary movements. Everything else that happens in the form is some variation of this, with very, very limited exception of some extreme stances and that kind of thing, which can be taken care of in other ways. But these 5, very, 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 very important, and they form a foundation. If you don't have these in your foundation, you don't really have Taiji, at least not this system of it. So what we have is brush the bird's tail, brush knee twist up, or cross step, monkey stepping back, and now part horse's mane. Okay, so when we there, all of these things, once we put them together, because next week what we're doing is we're going to do cloud hands, and cloud hands kind of puts all of this stuff together, right? But it is more abstract in that way because it's got more content in it, so a little bit different. But anyway, so we'll do that. Feel free to go back and check out some of the previous streams and all of that. I'm going to run through the set once forward, once backward, just up to our first brush knee, and just so you can get a flavor of it. And then I'll turn around and do it from the back, so if you want to follow along, you can. And then we will end. All right. All right. I'll just do one up and down. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. We will be here next week again. So practice all that. Go back to the previous streams, see what you missed, or review, whichever. That's what they're there for. So, until next time, I will see you later. Have a good day.